continued peace and stability in our country.
Also, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who was guest earlier on the news, he was on the news yesterday, reacted to the first day of the protest, saying government is open to dialogue.
Now, on the streets, when people are being, when cars are being burnt, people are being shot at, by the same protesters and taking sticks and looting property. Did you see these the leaders of these groups? Where are they? We have always said, come, let's talk to you. They don't come here. Some of them are outside this country, using social media to instigate violence in this country. This is not protest, this is violence. And that's what we are saying, that all of them need to come back. If they are available, government is ever open to discuss and dialogue with anybody. This is our country. This country belongs to all of us, protesters and non-protesters alike. We all have this country to keep. Let us tour the path that will ensure that Nigeria becomes more united, not destruction. We want them to come to the dining table if they are available.
Well, joining us in the studio for this conversation is security consultant Patrick Abamu. Good morning. It's good to have you join us. We also have with us in the studio social affairs commentator Shijibomi Adebiyi Bennett. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you join us. Let me begin with you, Shijibomi. Your overview of day one of this protest. Many persons did not envisage what happened yesterday, but there are those who said that, well, it was bound to happen. But from your perspective, when you look at how the security personnel organized themselves in terms of protecting the protesters and also the protesters themselves adhering to the court order that was given a few days to the protest, and what happened yesterday?
From my perspective, it was a fairly good protest yesterday. And for me, it was the first test for the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in terms of trying to live and exemplify the ideals of democracy. He was a chief protester during his heydays, and everybody was looking at it from the perspective we see how he instructs or engages the security personnel in carrying out their civic responsibilities. So, and the joy for me is Lagos. You cannot imagine the kind of trauma business people went through yesterday. I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, and when I see people talk out of context, I just don't argue, because people act based on the level of their knowledge per time.
Absolutely.
So last NSAS, that was 2020.
Yes.
My business community, I belong to the an alumni community in Lagos, a business alumni community. And so many of our members lost properties. Our present president lost a whole shop of wares. And people had to do a bit of contribution. And how much can you do? So, but because of her resilience, a tenacity of purpose, she was able to come back. So when you hear protests like that in Lagos, you wonder, people that haven't built anything, that don't have things at stake, they don't care. But these are people putting food on other people's table.
Right.
So my joy is Lagos, because Lagos was able to, in an orderly manner, contain and nip any unforeseen circumstances in the bud. We had people, and credit to the protesters as well as the security personnel, the way they organized themselves from Ojota, even with a bit of initial provocation, because we had two protesting groups, anti and pro, and the security personnel had to come in and resolved it, and people marched to Ganify me. My last protest was 2012. And when people talk about protest and what the government has said about it, I laugh and I chitter, because then protests used to be a convergence point, then where you want to, address the government, you march there. But now protest is about blocking roads, which is not ideal.
There's no ideology guiding the protest.
Because sometimes I think it's still about our history. The people ahead has not passed the torch appropriately to
this generation. All right, Shijibomi, you were talking about how it is that from what you saw in recent times with regards to protest, and being that you had once protested, especially in 2012, it seems that the baton has not been passed down appropriately to this generation. Why do you say so?
I'm not specific to Nigeria. It's happening everywhere. The world is getting to an unruly stage now. I will give you 3 examples.
Right.
What's it called? Capitol Hill. That was Donald Trump.
Capitol Hill, yeah.
Yeah. And you knew what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
In the UK, I think last year or a few years ago, people blocked the road and the police arrested every one of them. Just last week before the Olympics in Paris, the ecologists and environmentalists, they wanted to protest, and the police arrested all of them because they were blocking the entrance to the Games Village. They wanted to disrupt it. And what did the police do? They arrested every one of them, even a minor. So when it comes to, because where your fundamental human rights stops, that's where another person's begin. So when we talk about, I don't follow the bandwagon. Give it any name, I say it as it is. So when anybody that says there shouldn't be protest has to have his head checked. Is a fundamental human right. But when the security personnel tells you that, let us see your route, let us be able to protect you, let us be able to make it peaceful, and you think they are trying to contain you, and you don't listen to the voice of reason. That was what happened in Kano, because the governor there wanted to, allegedly, on my own personal opinion, wanted to play politics with that protest. And that was how it got out of it. Because the day before, he welcomed it. He said they should protest. But it is the same government today.
He was, attesting to the fact that it was their right.
Yes. And, when you say it's their right, you also try as much as possible to guide them towards the right approach about it. Because you just address them and you told them to go, let them continue. And they continued. And now you are saying 24-hour curfew. So these are the things we have to talk about. Lagos was amazing, not perfect, but amazing. Plateau, Adamawa was amazing.
But some would say there was a show of force days before the protests began, and perhaps that we're learning from the 2020 incident. And the governor had come out to say, you know what, we will not have that repeat itself again. Yeah. But let's quickly come to Patrick Abamu, who is a security consultant, to help us assess some of the things that Shijibomi has said, talking about on the part of the protesters, where the police had said that, you know what, give us details so that we'll be able to appropriately protect you. But they shouted that down, if I may use that word. They refused it. Is this a function of the perception of the people towards the police that played out? And we saw what happened. In fact, the IGP also even mentioned it, that this was the reason why we were asking for those details, so that we can easily fish out the infiltrators and deal with them decisively. Unfortunately, what happened, happened.
Yeah. There is, how will I say, a universal standard of protest, which is that you want to protest is a right, but it's not everybody that might agree with you in your protest. So they also have a right for movement and to do other things they wish to do. And so if you must protest according to laid down procedures. And what is the essence of your protest? You want the authorities to know about your grievances and what you want to be corrected, which is right. Okay, so how do you do it? Do you follow the path of violence? Do you spontaneously, without being coordinated, like they talked about, you take off from a point and you are going to deliver a message somewhere. So that line of movement is known by the security forces to be able to provide security for you so there won't be any infiltrators. Because the world we live today, there are many people who take advantage of situations to cause mayhem. These days of terrorism, these days of a lot of evil. And so you must, even you who is a protester, must be protected. But it has to be in agreement with a standard rule. We can't have a state of anarchy. But I tell you that in recent times, protests across the globe has been creating, is planned to create a sense of anarchy all over. You talked about the United States, when the Marine had to be called in. You talked about the United Kingdom. You talked about France. You talked about Kenya. You know, Ghana, they were supposed to protest, but they followed the law when the court said, no, you can't protest because of the security, the fear, and the reports we are getting from security agencies. And the planners of the Safe Ghana decided to shelve their plans and channel and address a war press conference and channel their grievances to the National Assembly of Ghana and to the presidency, to the executive, for it to be addressed. And since then, we have seen what happened. So, but when you feel that I want to grant the government, I want to bring the government to their knees by being
the language
violent.
that was being used.
Yes, you see, because that is the essence. You feel that the government is not doing what you want to do, so I must bring them to their knees so that they can agree and accept what I want. Then, in doing that, you are going to infringe the rights of other citizens. You are going to, it's going to be counterproductive to your purpose of even protesting in the first instance. So that is one, and the law enforcement agencies has the mandate to protect, ensure maintenance of law and order. And so they will definitely not agree with your method. You have a good purpose, but what is the method? And so if you don't agree with them, then you have gone contrary to standards. I was discussing with somebody that said, but since there is a right to protest, is there any right for the security agencies to stop the protest? I said, no security agency has tried to stop the protest. We had intelligence reports of what was going to happen. I had it. And some days before then, even since the issue started, and security forces tried to mobilize and dissect this intelligence and find out where and what should be done. And I tell you that what we saw in some states were the script that was already planned. In some other states, particularly Lagos State was to be the major flashpoint, I must admit. You know, Lagos State was to be the major target. But like he said, kudos. There are factors that helped Lagos that we're talking today now. Factors, one, the security forces, led by the Commissioner of Police, exhibited the highest level of, how will I describe it, of tolerance.
Yeah. Okay.
Of tolerance. Because agreement, most of the protesters did not agree to what was agreed. Meetings were called, but they didn't turn up. At the last minute, they refused to turn up. And so, which means you are ready to go contrary to plans. But they were able to mobilize. And they had the support of the governor, who supported them and ensured, and the judiciary also helped. Yes. Because they were able to say, listen, this is the situation. Location. Based on the intelligence, this is what should be done, this is what should be done. And that should have been a template for the whole nation. That should have been a template. And unfortunately, some states were not able to interpret the template properly because of either the non-political will of the governments in that state. Because it will take it, you can't take it away that if the government in that state do not agree with the security services, then nothing can be achieved. The kudos that we're having in Lagos is because the actors in enforcing and ensuring that there's security, the police, and other services played very well. There were lots of cooperation. I came into Lagos to monitor pre-protest, to find out how is it going to be done because of the flashpoint and because of the precedent of 2020.
Right.
And the international community were all watching what is going to happen in Lagos. Everybody was, the international media were all focusing on to see the mayhem that will happen in Lagos. But to their disappointment, Lagos failed them, and Lagos maintained decorum. There were provocations. The court said this and this, gather here, protest here. But they exceeded. In some were even in Alausa by the government,
Somewhere at Ikeja.
Somewhere, those were those who were anti-protest, which the commissioner of police quickly addressed them and said, listen, you have no role. We don't want, because there will be confrontation, please despise. And they obeyed. Some who came out and said, okay, look, you're not supposed to be a match to the Ganifa Army Park. And they agreed. In a situation where it should have called for serious action by the police, the commissioner of police was telling his men, remain calm. At a point at the government house in Lagos State, in Ikeja, the team the protesters there were being violent, and they refused. Even when the commissioner of police told them to go to the designated places, they refused, that they were going to be there. And the CPO said, no problem. And asked his men, don't let them move. They can't overpower you, curtail them. And that was what happened. In extreme provocation, police maintained decorum. But in some states where there were problems, was a breakdown of interpretation of the standard procedure. What is the operational order? How was it going to? But the chain were broken. And that was why we had that failure. It could have been worse than what we had yesterday.
Especially in Abuja?
Especially in Abuja. Abuja was because the truth was that, you see, I have to call a spade a spade. For me, when we talk about interpretation, we must get it right. Right. I have a message to deliver to you. How do I deliver that message? My tone, my demeanor, my attitude could send wrong signal to you.
Right.
Yeah, the court has confined them somewhere, and some people insisted they must be at the Eagle Square, because previously they saw some people protest at the Eagle Square. But those ones were not there to cause violence, and there were reasons why you were asked to go somewhere else. But how was this interpreted to them? So, question, I expect the security agencies concerned to be able to question this. While we may blame those who went violent, we should also look at how was the plan, the operational order interpreted, was it interpreted properly? But let's face the reality. They said the protest will be from 1st of August to the 10th of August.
Yes.
Was there really need for elongated protest? You want to send a message, have you sent the message? But I tell you that the security forces cannot, those states where there was problem, they cannot experience the same problem again, because overnight they have tightened up their security. They have ensured that, let me tell you, Lagos State will have been worse. Like the IG said in his address,
yes,
bomb was discovered.
Yes.
Arms were recovered early yesterday morning. These were supposed to be used to cause mayhem in Lagos State. But kudos to the information from the members of the public, police were able to got these people arrested, and this doused the situation. And that is what we're having today. There was cooperation between the public, yes, and the security personnel. In fact, kudos to Nigerian citizens. Most of the Nigerian citizens were not ready to depart of violence. They were not ready to allow these people to create mayhem for the citizens any longer. Like he talked about businesses, a lot of people lost their livelihood. A lot of people lost their lives. And I went to places where I saw market women were selling, because some of them said, look, they have told their children, don't come out, stay indoors. And those will have been the children who will join in those protests. And that is, we must be able to, if you must protest, agree with the security agencies. They are not there to stop you. They are not there to harass you. They are there to make sure that you are protected and other citizens are protected. Is it so difficult to understand that the security agencies, like he has pointed out, are there to protect the protesters? Is it so difficult to accept that the police
is your friend, as they often say. Because this whole matter of the perception and not cooperating with the police to ensure there is a smooth protest, as he has pointed out, is quite a concern for some, because the protest still continues today and we don't know if it will happen tomorrow. It
used to be a problem, and I think
still is.
It still is, but going forward, it's not going to be. Life is dynamic and things evolve. You cannot take out the experiences of Nigerians of the past. You can't take that out. Before NSAS, what was the relationship between the populace, especially the youth, and the police? So you can't, in just a day, right that wrong or change that perception. But the same Nigerian youth, the same Nigerian public can see how the police has protected them. We didn't mention some of the things that the police did yesterday. In Abuja, somebody held a knife, and a guy was going to attack the protesters. The police arrested the person. All the pro-government protesters, the police made them to go back to their base, allow these people to have their day. And like he said, I think the problem in Abuja is the governor in Abuja. Because there is a way... The governor? Or yes, the minister? That's the governor. The minister of the federal... Capital Territory. Yes. Yeah. He's doing wonderfully well in Abuja. And when it comes to delivering projects and infrastructure, give it to him. But there is an approach and there is the tone to talk to the youth. You have to be tactful. If I were the minister, what will I have done? My people, you have not paid for this venue, the Eagle Square. Paid? No problem. I will give it to you free. But use it as a convergence point and move to National Stadium so that you can still address your concerns and make that place so people can come from all over, converge somewhere, and move to the other area. That shows sensitivity. Do you understand what I'm saying? But when you are trying to tell them you will not, like, I don't want to use the word emperor, like people have been calling him on social media. If you use that word, they will confront you, no matter how many policemen you bring. But he eventually came out to say, okay, we are ready for dialogue. Because he now realizes, and his principal is a Democrat. So his principal, you wouldn't have known what would have transpired within 24 hours. They would have told him, this is how to do this thing. You can't, this is not your former state, or your state, sorry, where you were a former governor. So those are the things the police have to, they have to rebuild the image, which they're already doing. So today, by the time they build on yesterday, and make sure today is as peaceful and maybe not as rancorous as yesterday, then you will see that even the population will continue to dissipate. And don't forget, the people that have the most of the responsibility to carry out are the governors. Because I will always say it, they are the major problem we are going to go democracy. There. I wanted us to build up to that point. But it's important that you pointed that out. Because the president has tried to make some interventions. He signed the minimum wage bill into law. He said he gave the governors palliatives. The federal allocation has increased. So many other things that has been put in place by the federal government. But then how this is trickling down has been the issue. At some point he said, go and meet your governors. They are the ones. Is it that people are not really understanding what the processes are in a democratic setting? Is that what you are reading from the kinds of things you're seeing, the demands these people are making, and some of the things that you're hearing? Now, my advice to the protesters, I've seen the 10-point demand. 15, actually. Maybe 15 now. I've not really seen a very cogent and futuristic solution to our problem. If you tell the government to bring back subsidy, it's insane. I will say it anyway, yes. Because the country will go broke within 2 months. We'll go back, and they believe that when we had the subsidy regime, that life was better. That's what they believe.
Okay.
let's get back to it, and that is how we get back to the governors. What I expect is the protesters and their leadership to now engage the government, get to the National Assembly. At least I want in the demand that every week, at least once in a week, there should be the leadership of the protesters, the youth leadership in the deliberations in the National Assembly, and it should be on the welfare of Nigerians. At least once a week, the welfare of Nigerians must be debated, and people, the representative of the people must be there. That is how to create laws, because there's a disconnect between the people and the government. Now, when we talk about the National Assembly, so many people focus on them, and I've been trying to say it a long time. Hey, they have been fat-fed and all that. And I was watching a program yesterday, and one of the House of Rep members was saying things that I was discussing with one of my uncles recently. Nobody focuses on the ministers. Nobody focuses on the MDAs. What is going on in those MDAs and the ministries is, let's not use the word, because I have to prove it if I really wanted to use the word I wanted to use. Because you see a minister, oh, they bought 160 million. I'm not justifying them. But we always major on the minors in our country. We look at those people, the easy people to catch. A minister has how many cars in his fleet? Do you know how much budget a minister has? What are they doing? Now, the 774 local governments, I will want the president as well. This advice is going to different sectors. Like the CNG. Imagine if each bus was given to each local government and not 10 billion naira to those governors. 774 local government chairmen, take one CNG bus. If I don't get in my local government, what will you think I will do? The local government chairman will not have, they don't have immunity. They live within us. The protest will be much more impactful because we march to his house. So those our problems are supposed to be, tackled from the grassroots. So that's why things like local government autonomy is like a breath of fresh air to me.
Right.
Now, the only other thing is we should try as much as possible to make INEC to determine the elections in those places, so that at least we can have a semblance of competition. Not that INEC doesn't have its own problems, but let us even have a semblance of competition. Not the ones that, like someone said 2 weeks ago, that it was in his office they wrote the names of local government chairmen that have won election that had never taken place.
Well, that is being worked on. The INEC has come out to say that they have capacity to handle, any local government election. So we're waiting to see how things pan out at the end of the day. But Patrick, let's come back to the lessons from yesterday, that from the protest of yesterday, that we can also look at putting forward between the security personnel and the protesters, how they can work closely together. You talked about interpretation of the message, how the message was passed across, and then that there is a chain of events or command when you're passing across a message that was broken, so to speak. How do we ensure that we avoid that today? Because the lives of the security personnel that was lost is important, and even the protesters. Yeah. We must ensure that no life is lost. Now, we'll talk about billions being lost as a result of what happened yesterday. How do we begin to garner all these monies back, and when will that even happen? We do not know, but that can be avoided today if we begin to talk about these things.
Yeah, first I must say that a headless mob is the most dangerous mob you can have.
Right.
Who are the head
of
the leaders of this protest?
The IGP said something. He said some of those who are pushing this protest are not even in country.
Many of them outside the country. In fact, at one of the points where we were yesterday, the head of that group is in US. And one of the protesters was telling an official, a security force, that let me call my Oga on video call so that he will talk with you. I said, how is that done? But the security officer said, no, I won't allow such. Your guy should be here so we can talk. You understand? That is the biggest challenge. There can't be any successful protest without leadership. And that is this. So who are those making these demands? Who are they making these demands? Well, like he was talking about, those demands have gone through it. Seriously speaking, they don't have the how will I say, the feel of the Nigerians at heart. It's just to create a state of anarchy in the country. And that is what the law enforcement agencies will not accept, and they must not accept. Going forward, like you did say, I think that for those protesting with all the rights they have to protest, they must organize themselves and dialogue immediately with the security forces. And some say that the courts that confine them somewhere is illegal, that how can court confine them? It's their right to protest as they wish. If you think it's illegal, go and appeal. There's still window of appealing. And they say to be able to prove to the courts that, listen, I don't agree that I must be confined in a place. I want to protest around, and both parties would defend themselves in the court, and the court should be able to take the... Nobody can say, no, I don't like the decision of the court, so I will act contrary. It's not possible. Then you are breaking the law. And that is the next stage. If they refuse, then the law enforcement agencies must do their job, unfortunately and sadly.
Well, the IGP has ordered that.
Yeah, exactly. So that is one. I also think that the IGP, with all the machinery around him, they should immediately contact Lagos State Police Command and find out how they were able to manage it. Whoever and whatever factor that has helped should be duplicated and replicated in other states of the Federation. Because there were extreme provocations yesterday, but the police here managed it effectively. I think that should have been what should go around the whole Federation. I know that there are a lot of people who are waiting for the slightest breakdown so they can loot and create mayhem. Their purpose is not to join the protest. Is any window, because let me tell you one of the reasons why there's need to have an organized procession or a confinement in the protest. For instance, what is the strength of the security forces? If the protest is going to be spontaneous from every angle, how will they protect you?
How they manage the situation?
How will they be able to manage it? So the security forces need to understand what your plans are, and that is why there must be leadership. They need to be able to provide. I've seen some protests in some places where their security forces will provide like a barrier for you, not to allow any infiltration into your camp. But that is when you discuss with them. In this situation, some of them refuse to dialogue with the police.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there was a protest, a labor protest, when they marched along Lagos the other time. The police, particularly the Lagos State Police Command, they provided them with water and biscuits.
Even this one, I think in Edo State.
In some places, yes.
The police provided them water.
Because they don't want to stop you.
Right.
They know it's their right, but you must do what is right. So I think that as we're going on, but for me, I don't think that protest should continue till on the 10th of August. In fact, most of Nigerians don't want it any longer. They want their lives to continue, but yet they want government to change things. I agree. There's hunger in the country. People are going through a lot of stress. And the political class, political elites must do something about it. But you can't take the path of violence to be able to get them to do that. Instead of doing that, you are hardening them, you are making them tougher, and the tougher steps will be taken against you. And that is the situation. So they must organize themselves, the protesters themselves, dialogue with the security system. The chief security officers of the states, talking about governors, must be responsible. I must say this. You understand? The body language of a governor can create more problem in that state. They must be in agreement with security forces. They must also give some kind of empathy to those who are protesting. Let them feel that, yes, we know your grievances. We will see what we can do about it. We must do something about it because people elected us. And talk to them in a way they will understand. It will make the job of security forces lesser than being aggressive. In the open, you said, yes, you have the right to protest. But behind the doors, you say, no, climb down on them, deal with them. It creates conflict. And that is a situation that must be eradicated if we must have a peaceful protest, if we must have a country that will seek development, and you can't develop in a situation of anarchy.
Interesting. Chijibomi, he mentioned something, this matter of a leaderless protest. But unfortunately, I hear that we need to end this conversation here now, although I will continue discussions after now with you gentlemen, as it has been reported. But all right, that's the much we can take on the program for today, but definitely we'll continue our coverage of the protest as we have our correspondents across the country monitoring developments as